Welcome to Taking the Rams by the Horns, a podcast that takes current affairs out of current affairs. This is an award-winning podcast in partnership with Sowetan Live. I'm your host, Rams Mabote. As you are aware, there was a mass exodus of endangered South Africans from our shores to the United States of America. All of them left in a huff, ducking bullets and escaping from the criminals running this country. There are supposed to be 50 of them, but one guy missed the flight. Johan Erasmus joins me today to tell me why he's staying in this dangerous country and about his organization, Betereinders. Johan, firstly, my brother, thank you for coming, but you make my life difficult. Now, I try to stay away from white people here. Now you are here, you have to come to my studio, right? I mean, really.
I'm so sorry, Baba. For me, I just wanted to face to face see my oppressor before I get on the plane on the next batch that Trump is taking in.
How did they miss you? How did you not make it into that flight?
Aye, Baba, I just didn't have enough victimhood scars So yeah, I got my victim hoodie, but I didn't wear it when
it was time to leave.
When it was time to leave,
yeah.
So they thought I'm one of the I don't know why, but the train will come.
Thank you so much for coming, though. It will come, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Betereinders. I mean, I know it sounds like happy endings to me. And when I first heard it, I thought it's a house of ill repute.
Bitter ending. Well, no, I can assure you that there's nothing of that going on. But we do try to work with our hands and get the job done, but that is not the same as
the other place I was thinking about.
As the hand job. So Betereinders is a movement that is sort of a play on the word Betereinders. Now,
yes.
Betereinders were the Afrikaners who refused to give up in the Anglo-Boer War.
Yes.
Now, remember, you guys aren't our first enemies.
Yeah.
Our first enemies are the English.
The English, yes.
So we hated them. I grew up in a house where I guess we were patronizing towards black people, but there wasn't like animosity or hatred. They were generally good relations.
It was the other guys.
The English.
Yeah.
My dad refused to whenever the English rugby team would play, he would switch off the television. At that stage, there was like a lot of things about Diana and he would just always tell me, they killed our ancestors, etc., etc. So that's our first enemy. So the Betereinders were the guys who refused to give up in the fight.
Yes.
In the South African War, Anglo-Boer War.
Yeah.
And that sort of became part of your Afrikaner nationalist propaganda later on. Like, this is the tough guy type of Afrikaner that we want. And so it's a bit of a play on that. Yeah. So Betereinders is saying we must fight till the better end, but for a better end.
Yes.
Now, since then, Steve Hofmeyer, he's this Afrikaner, right? I know you guys text regularly, and his son and some other young Afrikaans guys, they started the movement Betereinders.
So he's got a counter.
So we are often confused with Betereinders, which gives us so much pleasure because on Newsroom Africa the other day, I did an interview and it just says Betereinders calls for unity and healthy race relations. But this is the opposite of
what they stand for.
Every time they release these press statements, this is not what Betereinders is calling for. So as a matter of fact, if you can advertise this as Betereinders talks to Rams, it will give me a lot of pleasure.
I think you're about to take over this podcast. You're doing very well so far.
So, anyways, so what does Betereinders do? We sort of operate on two legs. On the one, we are passionate about nation building, about reconciliation, and there are all sorts of different ways in which we do that. We try to get black and white together because the fact of the matter is, I come from a place like Pretoria. It's very segregated still, and the black people that white people know of are either working for them or the people they see on TikTok and YouTube and on their WhatsApp groups, and they are the Andiles, the Juliuses, etc.
Yeah,
and I think white people are genuinely afraid. There's a genuine fear that I don't even want to.
Fear of what?
Swart gevaar, the Black Danger. You and your
32 years later, you still have this fear.
Absolutely.
33, actually.
So if you do not engage with real black people, you just engage with these caricatures.
Yeah.
And they are singing their songs and they are dancing. I mean, it's a pretty daunting sight. Like what's been playing in America for the last, I don't know how long, last few months. You've got Malema and this Red Army in this packed out F&B stadium.
Yeah.
And they are singing with the subtitles, kill the farmer, shoot the farmer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty scary. And then they say some other things that also sounds pretty scary. Then if those are the only black people you engage with, then it's very easy for this narrative to get out of hand as it has. But what Betereinders
yes.
tries to do,
Yes.
I'm taking over the podcast.
Good, go ahead.
My guest here today is Rams.
Let's get this man hired.
Yeah. No, I'm telling you, like, this is expropriating the podcast.
Without compensation.
Yeah. And Betereinders says, once you interact with real blacks, not your fake blacks, not your politicians, not the guys,
Not your servants.
and also not your servants.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden the dynamic changes. So we take hundreds of Afrikaners to go watch a PSL soccer game. And then they sit there and they're very scared. First time going to Mamelodi Sundowns or going to a Soweto Derby and like very scared. And they walk in there, whatever. And then afterwards, I mean, you have to get used to the dacha, which is...
Well, it's par for the course.
Yeah. And then walk there and these people are just so happy to see you. And they walk there, you can keep the land, you can keep the land. This one, you can keep the land.
Yeah.
And these Afrikaners are very, what's going on here? But they haven't engaged with real people. We take them to go play soccer in the township. We also take our black township friends to go watch a Bulls rugby game, etc.
Slightly expensive though. Damn it.
It changes.
Aye, man.
I know.
Yeah.
You
pay 60 rand to the stadium.
And less dacha, which like you don't even get something for the money.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is that once these relationships start, then fear starts to disappear, because when they talk about the blacks, it's not just the blacks. They think of, okay, Rams. So the blacks hate us. Well, does Rams hate me? Let me phone Rams. Rams, do you hate me? The blacks want to do so. Tabang, let me phone Tabang. Tabang, is this what you want? Sibusiso, is this what you want? You know what I mean? So all of a sudden, this scary facelessness of blackness gets names and people.
Yes.
And then it becomes more difficult to mobilize people against this black danger. But we don't just want it to stay sort of in a kumbaya space, because from these interactions, we want people to share resources. And we've seen hundreds, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of black people being connected to study opportunities, to work, once these resources are shared. But remember, if I only braai with Afrikaners, if I only play golf with Afrikaners, who are the people, when there's a job opening up, who am I going to recommend? More Afrikaners.
Exactly.
I'm not even malicious. I'm not like, I don't hate black people. I just don't know you.
Yes.
But when these networks are shared, then all of a sudden these people are connected to these opportunities. And I've seen it the other way around. A friend of mine here in Joburg, a pastor, one of his congregants is a black lady. She works at a black mining company, and his daughter is now studying on a black sort of business bursary, and she's a white Afrikaans.
That's amazing.
So this happens when we connect our resources, when we have that sort of relationships. So some of the other things we do is we fix potholes. We're trying to get different organizations together to fix potholes. We try to get farmers together, emerging farmers, commercial farmers, etc., and we try to operate on these two legs: social development and reconciliation.
Yeah.
But we think that those two belong together.
But in the process, Johan, you have now created new enemies. People who were supposedly your brothers and sisters. Now they're thinking, Verraaier, right? You're betraying the nation.
Well, the term that they used in the Anglo-Boer war was a joiner. You become a joiner if you leave the fight. I just would like to reiterate the fact that I am not on that plane. I did not get on.
In fact, you're in Newtown as we speak,
I am
in the heart of
the belly of the black beast.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And I'm going to get cancelled after this. No, not just the Afrikaners who hate me, the blacks as well. But the point is that we did not get on the plane. We didn't become joiners. Yeah. We are still here. We are still the Betereinders. We are fighting here till the bitter end. We've got a Zulu name, by the way. Skoko Sangampela.
Skoko Sangampela.
We refuse to have an English name because remember we hate them. but we've got a Zulu name, so
Okay.
so we are the
In
Scorpions.
fact, to work with you, our next interview is going to be in Afrikaans, so that we don't speak English. You know,
course.
we exclude these
No,
people.
no.
You
I
know,
mean,
must get
we
rid.
must colonialism must fall, of course. But Baba, so yeah, I guess we question the white victimhood narrative, and if you do that at the moment, then there is a bit of animosity that comes your way. So the one thing that we did when we saw this ridiculous refugee status offered by America, we made a T-shirt that said not USA as in United States of America.
Yeah.
You said slaves of America, United States of America, but USA as in you, South Africa.
Yeah.
And then we just put our organization's name, Betereinders, and hashtag not a victim.
And what would the USA in this case, in your case, mean?
South Africa.
Yeah.
Like 30 years ago, these Afrikaners were standing there and they had their fist on their heart and they said, ons vir jou Suid-Afrika.
Yeah.
Ons sal lewe, ons sal sterwe, ons vir jou Suid-Afrika. We will live, we will die, us for you South Africa.
But they will argue it's not sell South Africa.
But I mean, then at the very least, go to Urania then. But I can assure you, your kids are not going to be Afrikaans.
Yeah.
They are not. Your Afrikaner identity disappears within a generation there in Washington or Florida or wherever you're going to be based. It's gone. And to say it's not the same South Africa, sure, fair enough. But then just please do me a favor and do not support the Springboks. Like you can't have the good, but then isolate yourself completely from everything that is bad.
Yeah.
Then be consistent. But these people typically they're gonna braai, they find their identity still sort of in the soil, they listen to their Afrikaans music, blah blah blah. But I struggle to with these guys who sort of say it's not the same South Africa, we jump ship, but they hold on to the guys who remain behind, like the Johan Erasmuses and the Siya Kolisis,
Yes.
and they want to piggyback on the success stories of that. Right now, our sprinters beat the USA in that relay.
Exactly.
And we put a message on our Facebook that says that moment when Trump realizes he invited the wrong ethnic group to America. But there's a sense of pride when that happens, and like do you not associate with that either? So I think that these guys who there's just a lack of loyalty. That's the one element, but also I think a misplaced victimhood narrative.
I'm astounded by how AfriForum and Solidariteit have really galvanized, the voices of the guys with victimhood. But they've got currency. People listen to them. I mean, they are listening to you. Probably you and your Betereinders are the only few people who don't listen to them. Why do you think they get this kind of currency?
So the one thing that happened is that you must know that the Afrikaner politicians disappeared in the early 90s. They went into the private sector and they did really well.
Yeah.
They weren't Afrikaners really in private sector. You had a handful, but that was actually the English whites. They were the ones with the businesses and whatnot. So the Afrikaners, our best Afrikaners were sort of in civic positions.
Yeah.
And then they got out of that space, went into the private sector, but there was still a conservative remnant that decided to politicize themselves, to organize themselves politically. But these are the guys who were part of the HNP, the Herstigte Nasionale Partij.
Yeah.
So they were annoyed when the National Party, when they were
Soften up.
reforming.
Yeah.
So they were saying, no, we need to redo this.
When the Verlichters took over the National Party.
Exactly. And you had the KP, the Conservative Party, and you even had...
I remember him very well.
This guy knows his stuff. Not just a pretty face. And then you had what was the other one? The OVB.
Yeah.
And these guys sort of repositioned themselves. They took over a trade union that was historically for white workers. They mobilized themselves. And this is how the Solidariteit movement started. Guys like Flip Bays, guys like Willie Spies, guys like Dirk Herman, some of those guys, they sort of reorganized themselves under this name. And I know those people. I've met them. I've played golf with them.
And in the early days, I've interviewed some of them in my previous job on radio. In the early days, they were actually dealing with labor issues. I mean, I remember dealing with these guys on labor issues.
Yeah. And they are very organized. They are very disciplined. And they took sort of the Afrikaner grievances, whether it was about the abuse of BEE, whether it was whenever Malema said something, they were able to mobilize people to give them money so that they can fight these people in the courts. And then the Afrikaner, my Afrikaner ego, was also drawn to many aspects of their organization. So, for example, when they build a Technikon, when they build schools, they are building a very proper Afrikaans university at the moment. My Afrikaner ego is drawn to that. Like, these guys, they get stuff done.
Yeah.
They don't drive fancy cars. They're not wearing Gucci. They are disciplined leaders, etc.
Disclaimer to those guys who wear Gucci. We're not talking about you. We just.
I mean, my black friends always fight with me. But the point is, like, you are speaking here to an Afrikaner. I'm not a woke liberal type.
Yeah.
There's an Afrikaner heart in me, and the fact of the matter is that these guys, they mobilized, and then they started to present themselves as sort of the only voice, but the moderate voice. But remember, 30 years ago, these guys voted no in the 1990s referendum that said, should we stop apartheid? Now these guys are the moderate voices in South Africa. The Rolf Meyers, all of those guys, they sort of were assimilated in the went corporate or whatever, and these guys became the only alternative. And I was sort of hoping, and I'm still hoping, that they have become a little bit more moderate. They are not as hectic as they were, etc. But now their skeletons are sort of coming out of the closet, where their alternative is a separate country, a Singapore type Urania.
You know what? It strikes me from time to time when I think about it. It strikes me as though these guys were hoping for an Idi Amin kind of situation, or even a Robert Mugabe kind of situation, so that they can become real victims. And when it didn't happen, they then force themselves to become victims. Because I have not seen, and I'm not going to dismiss fears, but I have not seen physically how Afrikaners and generally white people are in danger in the country. Or am I missing something here?
It's hypothetical. It remains hypothetical. So remember, when Malema sings his song, a stadium full of angry EFF supporters, they shout their thing. It looks pretty scary. You've got the Expropriation Act. You've got Zimbabwe that is next door, and the stories of Zimbabwe is very much whispered in our ear constantly as we're just another Zimbabwe. It's Zimbabwe waiting to happen.
Yeah.
So I think those guys would even admit that it is hypothetical. And then obviously you've got an issue with rural safety in this country, and that has definitely been utilized to say this is the beginning. This is the beginning of this process. I think my argument against my friends within those networks is that we use lines like there are 148 race laws in this country, more race laws than apartheid, etc. So they use this kind of rhetoric of BE legislation, but they don't live in the other reality, which is white people earn 4 times more than black people.
Well, one of them was in the aircraft set. He's living behind a 5-bedroom house and stuff like that, right? Yeah. He lost the irony completely.
I mean, that's the other element. But I think those guys are genuinely scared. They are genuinely scared. Yesterday, the UJ choir sang at a church where my friend is one of the pastors. And he said one of the members came to him afterwards and said, that was lovely. That was such a blessing. It just, it didn't feel like these black people hated me. And he said, of all the reactions that you could give, it didn't feel like these people hated me. That's the picture, that's the caricature that they have. That guy on the plane, he genuinely engaging with his TikToks and with these angry black voices, the notable lawyers or whatever. I think he's genuinely convinced that you guys hate him.
Shouldn't action, though, convince these guys than these words? Because, the EFF rally with 100,000 people at the stadium, when it ends, these guys go home. They do what you and I do, go have a top or whatever, maybe even a Zol. But we haven't seen that guys get out of that stadium and they this mass murder of people after that.
Not yet, but we won't wait yet till that happens. Can I tell you something bizarre? Is that one of our projects is in Brandvlei,
Yeah.
which is just south of Joburg.
Yeah.
And there are 3 Afrikaners, and they are partnered with 3, actually more, black guys in this Brandvlei township. Lucky, Sia, and another guy as well. And there are 2 things that's happening. On the one hand, they are farming together.
Mm-hmm.
These 3 Afrikaners, 3 black guys. On the other hand, is the pothole mix that we make to fix the potholes are made by these guys in Brandvlei.
Yeah.
And so we've now given them the resources to have their little own plant in which they are producing this pothole mix, etc. So one Saturday, these guys are going there and they can't find the Sias and the Luckies there. And then they say, no, they're late. They're still coming back from FNB Stadium. They supported Malema there at the stadium. So these guys went there and they presumably, the images that we are seeing where Malema is singing Kill the Boer and those guys are singing, if you look carefully, I'm pretty sure you will see Sia and Lucky there dancing and shouting the slogan or whatever. They came back 2-3 hours later and farmed with Koos and Mike with their chili farming business that they have. Those guys were farming together 2 hours later. Now,
so they didn't come back to kill the Boer. They farmed with the Boer.
They farmed with the Boer 2 hours later after singing Kill the Boer. Now listen, I don't want to suggest that. I mean, I don't want to go into the details of what the struggle songs mean or whatever. I think from a pastoral place, I would say it's not the best time to sing that song now. There's a lot of animosity, and that's a different debate.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you is just in terms of the fruit of that song, at least this is anecdotal what I'm giving you. At least Koos and Mike are still alive. And they farmed with these, and these are the guys. When white people in Pretoria are fixing potholes with our mix, they are using the product of EFF boys who are making that.
What?
And who are active, very passionate about
Yes.
Malema. And if you go on their Facebook, they will share Malema's message.
Yes.
And our white friends came this afternoon to visit us, and we've got, this is our chilies that we produce. This is the spinach that we produce. So it's this weird mixture.
And I can understand why Sia and them are still there, because reality, Johan, is that we're still facing huge inequalities in this country.
Exactly.
So, and they feel it. Those guys feel it. The fact that they work with Koos and Mike does not change the inequalities that they face every day.
Exactly. So I think that's the problem that we have, is that we only look at our victimhood in isolation. So I would say that to a certain extent, whites are victims at a certain level of BE or whatever you call it, or populism, etc., etc. But black people are also a victim at a certain level. So, like, for example, you can get on a plane. You can be an MK EFF guy. You can get on a plane and you can tell people about the 1913 Lands Act.
Yeah.
You can get on that plane and you can tell people about those farmers in Mpumalanga who put people in coffins.
Yes.
The other day, farm workers.
Yeah.
There are instances of farm workers being treated horribly.
Terribly.
I know of a white farmer, a wonderful farmer, I'm not going to name him, who managed to uplift his farm workers to a place where they are commercial farmers, doing wonderfully well. And he tried to buy a new farm for these guys to farm with them, but it's a wonderful story. And his white farmers neighbors refused to sell it to them because they are against that sort of type of land reform. They can tell stories like that, where whites are really trying to keep black farmers out of the market. You can tell stories of the white ownership of commercial land in this country. And if you leave it like that, it's going to tell a pretty one-sided picture, and you will be justified in thinking, well, then you guys must maybe just take it by force. I understand. But that is if you tell the story of South African agriculture from a one-sided perspective. Now, the Aaron Strutzer and those guys, they come and they say, this is the song that is being sung.
Yeah.
This is the expropriation law that has been passed. This is what happened in Zimbabwe next door. You just tell those figures in isolation, and it seems pretty scary.
Let's talk about Trump, because he's latched onto this thing.
And I know he's a big fan of the podcast.
He loves it.
Yeah.
I mean, he loves it.
Yeah.
He's actually asking me to also get onto the next plane and do it from the US.
You can be an honorary wife.
I could try. I interviewed somebody recently who said to me that Trump, by offering the refugee status to Afrikaners, was calling their bluff. He says, if there was serious danger and a racist like Trump would have invaded South Africa. So all he's saying is that, okay, you don't like the country you live in, come here then. And I thought, actually, this could be making sense. He's calling their bluff. If you don't want to live in your country, come here. But I'm not getting involved in your politics in your country. But I'm going to ask you, what do you make of Trump getting interested in a small country further south of the world where he is?
I think I'm not sure I agree with your friend who says about the bluff, but it has definitely revealed the bluff. So I think your AfriForums, your Solidariteit, they remember their organization is built on fear.
Yeah.
So in other words, this is how it works. I'm not sure if you're on the same WhatsApp group, but I'm definitely on their WhatsApp group. So what happens is Malema says something, they fight him in the courts. There's an SMS that goes out that says send stop to this number if you want to support AfriForum's bid to fight these guys. You SMS stop. Next moment they phone you. They ask you, do you want to give 50 rand? Do you want to give 100 rand?
Wow.
That's the model. Okay. So the more you guys mess up, the more opportunity they have to send me the WhatsApp, the SMS, so that I can respond, so that they can get a bigger. So this has been the message for a long while. The fact of the matter is that those guys do not want to go. The Kalis, they want to be in South Africa.
Yes.
And I won't even dismiss it as negative. I think they feel called to the land. They feel called to the soil. There's a sense of their identity that does not exist outside of South Africa.
Yeah.
100%. But they have been hitting this victimhood narrative so loudly that it was heard and misinterpreted in the States, so much so that the planes are coming.
Yeah.
And in that regard, they've been trying to block all the holes in the wall and say, no, this is not exactly what we meant. I mean, it's bad, but it's not that bad. And we still want to be... So I would say it's their victimhood narrative. They were these dogs who were chasing a bus and just barking and barking and barking, and then the bus stopped. And they didn't know what to do with this big bus. And then you had people further on the right of AfriForum who said, no, we are taking up Trump's offer. So the people who got on that plane, I don't want to be dismissive and character assassinate those people. But if I know some people have been going onto their Facebook pages and whatnot, and I mean, I need to be careful when I say this, but I don't think it's the cream of the crop that these Americans are getting of the Afrikaner.
I thought America is going to be a booming agricultural land after this. 49 best farmers of the world moving.
I know amazing white farmers, amazing African
I've met a lot.
farmers, and they are talented. They know what they are doing, and it's really not their narrative. It doesn't mean that they think everything that's going on in South Africa is okay. It doesn't mean that they've got certain anxieties. By the way, the last farmer that was murdered in this country, that according to the statistics, I'm pretty sure AfriForum and the government agrees on this, is a farmer that I know from my hometown of Newcastle.
Yeah,
and it's a farmer who didn't deserve to die, who was brutally murdered on his farm. There wasn't any slogans of light this and kill the boer, kill the farmer.
Because they're killed by criminals, right? It's not a political act.
They wanted gold.
Yes.
And they thought that these people had a gold mine somewhere, and I think they had the wrong person. They wanted guns, they wanted cash, and they wanted gold. They were shouting things about gold. This guy just jumped up, Tolinal, rest his soul, jumped up, said, "What do you guys want?" And he was shot. They got a fright when they saw this white guy jumping up, and they shot him. And his wife and sons are obviously very traumatized by this thing. There are issues in rural safety. Let's talk about it. Do they think that there is this massive political narrative, or at least complicit movement that is trying to push them out, and this is just Mugabe, Zimbabwe in the waiting? No, that's not my experience when I interact with these guys. But you asked me what's Trump's game plan here? Yeah, I think,
if any, I don't trust that guy has a game plan of anything really.
So that, I think you're giving him too much credit there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the one bit. But the other thing is that he's been running on an anti-woke sort of narrative.
Yeah.
Like, you had these leftist woke people, and they're just shouting whiteness, white this, white monopoly capital, blah blah blah. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to get rid of the woke. I'm going to get rid of the diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff. So let's just clean house here. And in South Africa, you have these people, the AfriForums, the Solidarity, the Roots, and they say this is what happens when woke gets out of hand, when a country just becomes too woke. So he allies himself that this is part of his anti-woke global narrative. So the Afrikaners in this instance here in South Africa are sort of the victims of wokeness going crazy. So I wonder if he's not sort of showing his anti-woke credentials. And it's interesting, if you look at the Roots, when he goes on to Jordan Peterson, some of these other YouTube personalities in America, he's constantly warning them, this is what happens when DEI goes unchecked.
Yeah.
So a warning to the West is how Jordan Peterson portrays it. So that's how I think this thing landed on that side. Now, the other thing that AfriForum and Solidarity are, I mean, they're putting the spin on. So they said they had nothing to do with this last thing. And they are saying that this is the American intelligence, US intelligence that has revealed to them this. Just remember that, I think it was 2018, Adam's Roots goes on to Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
He speaks about what's happening in South Africa. 5 minutes later, Trump responds, just watch Tucker Carlson, terrible things happening in America. I'm sending Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, to go and investigate. Yeah. Now they're saying, 7 years later, they had nothing to do. This is ANC foreign policy that has led to this. But, I mean, they claimed it 7 years ago as this massive victory for this organization. They sent me WhatsApps so that I can give more money because look how successful they've been. And I've asked them, if you had nothing to do with Trump's reaction, then didn't you waste your members' money because you've been sending people there to negotiate, to activate people on that side? So to me, it seems pretty obvious that.
By the way, did you give them the $50?
No.
We can edit that one out. You can tell me.
No. But I mean, I've got good friends who support them. Like it's
like all of us, right? I mean, I've got friends who are diehard ANC members, diehard EFF members, diehard Zol smokers. We all have friends. We are many people in one, right?
Exactly.
So I want to deal with two other themes before we conclude. Do you think post 1994 and to now that we left too much of a gap to deal with South African issues, that we shouldn't find ourselves here, that we had this kumbaya moment in Mandela, maybe there should have been work done in between?
Of course. And I think two things. On the one hand, we are very critical in South Africa of everything. The ANC, of white people, of this and that. But some of my friends who've gone and who came back, they can see some of the progress that we've made. It's not nothing. Like people just say this country has gone down the drain in the last 30 years. But if you go to big parts of Joburg, you will see decay, but you will also see amazing development. Look at Sandton, for example, where you stay. I mean, that place has just exploded in the last. I don't stay there. In the last few years. I know you're a cheese boy. Don't pretend anything else, Rams. I can see straight through you. And you've got go to Cape Town, go to various places. We've had development.
Yeah.
Look at the Springboks. There's something good that's happened there. So we must also know that we've made some important strides in terms of race relations. Like a couple of years ago, it would have been unthinkable for me to think of Afrikaners marrying blacks and vice versa. I'm seeing it now.
Yeah. Look, they do misstep a bit when they sing, but we accept it.
So look, I mean, that I think it is a crime against humanity when we dance and sing. I agree. People are constantly focusing on apartheid as a crime against humanity, but not on Afrikaans music as a crime against humanity. But we've made some strides. I think there are a few things that happened. On the one hand, the Afrikaners were licking their wounds, and I don't think we embraced the invitation of the Tutus and the Mandelas as we should have.
Yeah.
We came out of a propaganda machine that was apartheid. And in the late 90s, early 2000s, people were still figuring out, goodness me, we were really sold a story about these blacks.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I mean, I want to be careful not to claim victimhood, but in that way, in that sense, white people, especially Afrikaners, were victims of nationalist propaganda. And then, as things were sort of slowly building into the new South Africa, you had the state capture report where there was a black power abuse.
Yeah.
I think we must call it as it is.
There's no other word.
And on the other hand, what happened is that you had your critical race theory intellectuals taking over and framing the problem in South Africa as, and we've alluded to it earlier, whiteness, white monopoly capital. This is just patriarchy. This is heteronormativity. Yeah. And we adopted a Black Lives Matter framework from the States and also from Europe and applied it to South Africa. So now, for the first couple of years, you have white people who didn't accept this invitation of the open hand from the Desmond Tutus and the Mandelas, etc. Then, as soon as they are waking up from their slumbers, you have a critical theory that is very critical of anything white. And all of a sudden, you can't even have proper reconciliation because every time there's an interaction between me and you are just figuring out all sorts of microaggressions. Johan, you use that word and it's racist. Yeah. So when white people woke up to start have this conversation, black people were already so critically trained to just look for any form of racism in any interaction that I think we missed an opportunity. And now the Tutus and the Mandelas are also thrown under the bus by blacks, saying they
sold out,
rainbow nationism or whatever.
Yeah, talk.
And I think what we need now is we need to consolidate the middle. We need to find the middle now, and we need to find each other quickly. And because in the same way, by the way, that black people would just accuse you, you are just perpetuating whiteness. You're just doing this.
White privilege,
all of that. Now, the Afrikaners, your right wing, would just say, what you're saying now is just woke. It's just wokeness. Yeah. You're just being a new Marxist, Johan. You've just been bamboozled by political correctness and you're just a progressive or whatever. So now the right wing is using different words to discard any form of reconciliation. The left wing is doing the same. And it makes it difficult for us to reboot this whole project of the new South Africa. So I still have a lot of hope that we can do this.
Which is my theme for the last issue, the reboot. What is the ideal Betereinde? What do you wish for as Betereinders?
I think for me it is not a politically aggressive integration, but integration. So I know you've got a Panyaza Lesufi that is going to all the Afrikaans schools and just saying, we demand that you guys, and he's heavy-handed in that process, and he says a couple of other things about Afrikaners, which makes people, I think, legitimately suspicious. But I think I've got a boy now. I've got 2 boys and a girl, but my...
Oh, you mean your children? You know, when a white person says, I've got a boy, I'm thinking of somebody who works in your garden.
Okay, in that case, I've got 5 boys. I've got a son.
Okay.
I've got a child, and he needs to go to school next year. And I've got this difficult problem. So on the one hand, I live in a place like Pretoria. I want him to go to a good school with tradition, where there's sport and there's culture and there's good academics. On the other hand, I want him to be in an integrated space where he's got the opportunity to make black friends, to kiss black girls. I want that kind of environment.
Yeah.
But I'm struggling to find it in a place like Pretoria because the so-called black schools do not have the traditions. They do not have the school culture.
Facilities, they have nothing.
And on the other hand, the Afrikaans schools are white.
Yeah.
So we've got a problem. So how do you maintain the excellence of the one and the integration of the other? So if you want to ask me what is my ideal future is one where my sons and daughter can interact, and there's no animosity between us, and then from that you can see, I mean, you spoke about issues of justice, how justice issues are addressed. It's not addressed from a top-down political, narrative. It comes from the ground up. Let me give you another problem. Like, I've heard this slogan, give back the land, give back the land. I don't have land. Okay. I've got like a little townhouse and it's half of it is not mine.
Yeah.
And if you take it, you're going to be very disappointed with what you got from the deal. So take the land. I'm not sure that is the solution. Now they want to take the land, but there are like 30,000 commercial farmers left. So is this just a debate between black people and 30,000 commercial white farmers, or what is the question? I think you are aiming low if you just want my land. Where my wealth is not in my car, it's not in my townhouse, it's in my resources, it's in my social capital, it's in my connections. And the way you get to that is not through expropriation without compensation, it is through friendship. That is how you get to my resources. So what do we need to do in South Africa is we need to desperately connect black and white people together so that those resources open up, so that black and white people open businesses together, so that you can get that creativity going. And we've got this one narrative, we've got this one example, this one petri dish of what happens when that happens and it comes together and it's beautiful. And that's the Springboks. You have this video Afrikaner, Johan Erasmus. You've got this Vekosa, Siyakulisi. You've got the skill and the pace of these coloureds that are unbelievable, like the Cheslin Colbys and the Wade van Niekerks. We always say that coloured people, they do one of two things. They either break Olympic records or the laws of the country. And you've got this incredible skill set on the other hand. Then you've got the Lucanio arms and the power of the Oxenquays and whatnot. Then you've got these big Afrikaans boys, lots of meat, tall Dutch origin, whatever. And it combines into something beautiful. And we are invited to do that thing in the corporate space, in the church space, in the school space. I get goosebumps when I see some of these schools, especially in Natal, and they've got all the traditions. It's beautiful. They take the best from, let me use this swear word, from, let's say, this Western educational, even call it colonial educational institution. Yeah. And they've got these Zulu war cries. Yes. And you've got these little impi warriors. And it's goosebump stuff, how they mobilize. And you can see these white kids are just so hyped by what they are seeing. You can see this coming together of these different cultures.
But that for me, Johan, and I've seen it, and I agree with you, but it looks slightly superficial because it's the blacks who have the access to go into those schools and become part of this thing. And of course, sell them the Zulu chants and stuff like that. But the reality, few kilometers down the road from those schools, is guys who are not part of this new thing that you're looking forward to.
But remember, it happens on multiple levels. Like, that's how I told you. The other thing that we do is we go into these townships and we partner with people there. That's where you've got the school system that I just explained there. But then you've got Chris and Mike and Sia and Lucky who are farming together. So that's not sentimental. It's very real. It's in the township.
And it's commercial.
And it's commercial. It's operating at a commercial level. Then we take on Saturday, we've got the not USA but South Africa Refuse to Flee braai and soccer tournament. It's happening in a Kameeldrift township there, just north of Pretoria. And we invited all our Afrikaner friends, it says this on the poster, to braai and play soccer with their oppressors. So that's the invitation. So we're going there on Saturday. You are more than welcome to come. And what happens is you've got a white guy. He talks there to a guy with an internet cafe, with a dry cleaning, with something like that, and opportunities open up. Business opportunities open up, and we've seen this happen. And one can say it's sentimental, but if you just want to do this thing on a macro scale, say, no, we need to take the land, we need to do this, then I am just a spectator in all of this. I'm just looking at it from the sidelines and I'm doing nothing. But if you tell me, Johan, you've got agency, you've got resources, limited resources, admittedly, but I can do something. There is somebody that I can take hands with. I can change the perception of 5 black kids who used to be scared of Afrikaners and who sees me as a racist, and I've changed the perspective just a little bit there. I can change that perspective by also trying, as far as I can, to give them access to some of my resources. Now, you might think that's not going to change it, but what if it's multiplied and it's multiplied? Then there will be some change.
I wish you all the best, my brother. I love the work that you do. I know it's hard work, and yes, as you say, at a smaller scale, it does not seem important, but if we multiply it, it will get better. And thank you very much for coming to join us here. I have a gift for you.
Yes.
Now,
I must back the books.
I must tell you about this gift, right?
Okay.
It probably is the same as Betereinders, right?
Okay.
Because this is a story of a black man who travels to Australia and has a lot of multiracial sex. So, really, this is like Betereinder right here. So, this is all yours, my brother.
This is the better ending, the one that
I thought we were talking about, right?
Oh, by Ramsman, but I hope it's not an autobiography.
Not at all. So, thank you for watching this episode of the award-winning Taking the Rams by the Horns. Download the My Sowetan app and listen or watch more of my podcast. We are also on Spotify and Iono FM. Follow us on X at Rams by the Horns and at Sowetan Live. Please send your comments to me via email on rams@ramsmabote.com. Let me know what you think of the podcast, or better still, let me be your MC, keynote speaker, or moderator at your next event. It is the only thing I do better than satire and sarcasm. Remember to buy my book, The Sweetest Taboo, available at your nearest bookstore. From me, Rams Mabote, goodbye and God bless.